Hey everybody, Josh Peck here. I am here in Oklahoma City and I got a new update for you. It seems like Nephilim technology is here and it's been here for quite a while, but even more so than we would think. So there's a new report. This is coming from ABC News that an 80-year-old man pleads guilty to genetically engineering giant hybrid sheep. That's right, giant hybrid sheep in audacious scheme, DOJ announces. So this is actually we've known for a while that this is going on behind the scenes, but it's coming to light more. And we got more stories to look at too. But it says that a Montana man pleaded guilty before a federal judge to 2 felony wildlife crimes for an almost decade-long effort to create giant sheep hybrids to sell the species to hunting facilities. The U.S. Department of Justice announced this week. So the 80-year-old man's name is Arthur Jack Schubarth of Vaughn, Montana. He's the owner and operator of Sun River Enterprises, LLC, also known as Schubart Ranch, which is a 215-acre alternative livestock ranch. That's what it's called, alternative livestock. Now, he conspired with at least 5 other individuals between 2013 and 2021 to genetically engineer a larger hybrid sheep species that would garner higher prices from shooting preserves, according to the release, which cites court documents this case. So 2013 to 2021, excuse me. So that's 8 years. Is it reasonable to assume every single one is accounted for? Like none of them escaped into the wild? So here's a quote from Assistant Attorney General Todd Kim of the Justice Department's Environment and Natural Resources Division. Quote, "This was an audacious scheme to create massive hybrid sheep species to be sold and hunted as trophies." So we're going to talk about the sins of the Watchers and the Book of Jubilees and the Book of Giants, and how this is a repeat of what has already happened and actually what caused God to send a flood to the whole earth and start over, because the Watchers were sinning against the animals as well, and it got out. And once something like that gets out, there's no way to bring it back in. So it says, to genetically engineer the sheep species, the DOJ said Schubart imported parts of Marco Polo Argali sheep, which is the largest sheep species in the world, from Kyrgyzstan into the U.S. without declaring the importation. He then sent genetic material from the Argali sheep to a lab to create cloned embryos, which he then implanted in a female sheep on his ranch, which produced a single pure genetic male that Schubarth named the Montana Mountain King, or MMK. To create several hybrid sheep, Schubarth then used MMK's semen to artificially impregnate various species of female sheep. So Schubarth and his unnamed conspirators wanted to sell the larger and more valuable genetically hybrid sheep to captive hunting facilities, primarily in Texas, according to the DOJ. And in order to move the hybrid sheep across the state, he forged veterinary inspection certificates, falsely claiming that the sheep were a legally permitted species. So he pled guilty, but that's a long period of time that this went by, and it would be silly, I think, to think that he's the only one doing this kind of stuff. And it makes us wonder, if this was going on since 2013, he probably wasn't the first, probably won't be the last. How many other people are doing this without the knowledge of the rest of the public? And what other kinds of things are being created? What other kinds of hybrids, even cross-species hybrids? Well, it goes further than that. We've been saying for years that whatever methods were used to create the Nephilim, it may not be the same methods, but that we're using today. test tubes and things like that. But the mentality behind it is the same. We want to create things in our own image. That's what the angels wanted to do, and they did. That's why they created the Nephilim, a hybrid between angel and man. And mankind wants to create things in their own image, and human beings aren't good enough. It's not good enough to just make children. So let's create other hybrid things. And it's repeating the same mistakes of the past. And if you know anything about prophecy, you know those sins are going to be judged too. There's another article from the week. The de-extinction process to bring woolly mammals back to life. Biotechnology startups stem cell research brings possibility of genetically engineered species a step closer. I do believe we're going to see this very, very soon if it hasn't already started. And you got to remember, a lot of time when these advancements are announced, those advancements didn't just happen. A lot of times they happened years ago. So and we've been seeing this idea of bringing woolly mammoths back to life, de-extinction. We've been seeing that in the news a lot more lately, especially the past few months. But we've been hearing about it for years. So, Colossal Laboratories and bioscientists revealed last week that it has successfully converted cells from Asian elephants into induced pluripotent stem cells, or iPSCs. The startup now aims to convert these iPSCs into egg and sperm cells that will carry selected genetic traits. From there, the plan would be for a surrogate elephant mother to carry a fertilized egg. Now, we have to keep in mind too, this is not just bringing woolly mammoths back. This is a hybrid creature. This is a creature that God never created, because it's not the woolly mammoth. It's a hybrid between a woolly mammoth and an elephant. So this is something that this is a hybrid. It would be bad enough. I mean, things are extinct for a reason. It would be bad enough to reverse that, but at the same time, to not only do that, but to go a step further and create just a brand new hybrid that's part extinct animal, part animal that we have today. Well, that's a brand new species. So again, we're trying to create our own thing, and it just shows the hubris that mankind can have. So it says, according to Colossal's own definition of de-extinction, the company wants to create an elephant that, quote, both resembles and is genetically similar to an extinct species, end quote. Essentially, one that biologically mimics their ancient sister species. And the process of how that works is very similar to what the guy did with the sheep that we that we looked at in the last story. And there's an end goal here. So Colossal admits that they're not trying to create a woolly mammoth just for kicks. So the startup hopes that its research will eventually produce an animal that can play the ecological role that woolly mammoths once did in the Arctic ecosystem, grazing the land and trampling the snow cover, potentially decelerating the melting of permafrost. Because for some reason, everything always has to go back to climate change. And a lot of times when we see people do this kind of stuff, they always have, it's always seen through, they explain it through rose-colored glasses. Like it's always, well, this is going to benefit in some way. And they don't ever talk about the dangers. Again, once the genie's out of the bottle, you can't put it back in. Once these things are roaming around, that genetic abomination is out there. And yeah, I mean, it could mate with other elements or other elephants. So, I mean, just if wiping them out's not going to do anything. And especially in terms of the last story with the sheep, well, all it is a big sheep, so how would you even track them all down if they were allowed to mate out in the wild? Well, that just increases exponentially. And now you have all sorts of animals that are genetically altered. And you can see now why, in the book of Genesis, when the angels sinned against mankind first, and the Nephilim were created. But then also, as the book of Jubilees tells us, which we're going to get into that in a minute, but they also sinned against the animals. And it got so bad to the point where, like Genesis says, everything was corrupted. Everyone was corrupted. So we're headed back to those days again. And, if you read the book of Revelation, we know that there's a big judgment coming for these types of sins. There's an ancient book, and I'm wondering who has heard of this, the sin of Canaan. And this comes from the book of Jubilees. So let's go ahead and read some of this. So it says, "For owing to these three things came the flood upon the earth, namely, owing to the fornication wherein the watchers against the law of their ordinances went whoring after the daughters of men, and took themselves wives of all they chose, and they made the beginning of uncleanness. And they begat sons, the Nephilim, and they were all unlike, and they devoured one another. And the giants slew the Nephil, and the Nephil slew the Elio, and the Elio mankind, and one man another. And everyone sold himself to work iniquity, and to shed much blood, and the earth was filled with iniquity. And after this they sinned against the beasts and birds and all that moveth and walketh on the earth, and much blood was shed on the earth, and every imagination and desire of man imagined vanity and evil continually. And the Lord destroyed everything from off the face of the earth because of the wickedness of their deeds, and because of the blood which they shed in the midst of the earth, he destroyed everything." So there was a couple of reasons: the sins of their deeds, their sinning against animals, and also the shed blood. So this sin against the animals and against people is different than the shed blood. We read it right there. It's these two sins. So the only other thing that we know what the sinning against the human beings was, that was mating and procreating and creating these hybrids. So it stands to reason that the sinning against the animals would be the same thing, genetic manipulation. It's clear God hates this stuff. God doesn't want his creation messed with. That's why he ordered in Genesis that everything was to reproduce after its own kind. Well, we get something really interesting concerning what's called the sin of Canaan, and this also comes from the book of Jubilees. So let's read a little bit about this. "In the 29th Jubilee, in the first week, in the beginning thereof, Arphaxad took to himself a wife, and her name was Razuiah, the daughter of Susan, the daughter of Elam, and she bare him a son in the third year of this week, and he called his name Canaan, Kainam. And the son grew, and his father taught him writing, and went to seek for himself a place where he might seize for himself a city. And he found a writing which former generations had carved on the rock." Now pause. This would be after the flood when this is happening. So this might explain. A lot of people wonder, how did the giants return after the flood? Well, this might explain it. Continuing on, he found this writing carved on a rock, and he read what was thereon, and he transcribed it, and sinned owing to it. For it contained the teaching of the watchers, in accordance with which they used to observe the omens of the sun and moon and stars in all the signs of heaven. So that's really interesting. Well, what is the sin of the watchers? It says here that it has something to do with the sun and moon and stars and all the signs of heaven. And like I mentioned before, however the genetic manipulations happened in the ancient past, it probably wasn't how we're doing it today. It probably wasn't, test tubes and syringes and things. I think it had something to do with some type of dark magic, something that had to do with astrology, something that back then was probably a lot more prevalent than it is today. Why isn't it today? I think it's because of the presence of the Holy Spirit in believers. And I think that because when you go back into church history and read some of the accounts of the ancient church fathers, and you even get some of this like in Acts, where Paul was able to dispel the demon out of the oracle, and then everybody got angry about it. There's something about a spirit-filled believer that the kingdom of darkness just cannot deal with. There's from Lactantius, an ancient church father. ancient Christian writer. He recorded instances where they were questioning the oracle of Apollo, and Apollo like had no choice but to admit that he was a demon, and then it got to the point where he just couldn't even talk at all anymore, and then he was never heard from again. So this kind of stuff happens. Well, that was in the early church. Imagine how much more now, where we have all these Christians. So, why don't you see as much of the magic stuff as you did like thousands of years ago? Well, I think it's because of that. So now the kingdom of darkness, since their power has been so diminished, they have to tempt human beings to go about it in a different way, and that's where we get the more scientific genetic manipulations. So it's a different process, but it's still the same result. And in fact, there's a section in the Book of Giants that might tell a little bit about how they did it in the ancient past, and this might relate to what Canaan ended up finding, and because this would have been after the flood. It's possible that some of that dark magic still existed, because apparently that had something to do with the sun and moon and stars and everything. But I don't know that it would have been as strong after the flood than it was before the flood. Now, after the flood, I think if that existed, it would have been stronger than it is now. But I think that was a big blow to the kingdom of darkness. But the question is, well, how did they do it? Like, if that was all crushed, then how did the giants return after the flood? And the Book of Giants might tell us. And it's really, really fragmented, so we're not going to be able to get as much information as we'd probably like. But there's a section here where basically the 200 angels choose animals on which to perform unnatural acts, and that's including presumably humans. So this comes from, and this is Dead Sea Scrolls stuff that we've been reading. This comes from 1Q23, fragment 1 and 6. So it says 200 donkeys, 200 asses, 200 rams of the flock, 200 goats, 200 beasts of the field, from every animal, from every bird, for miscegenation. And then it says this is 4Q531 fragment 2. They defiled, they begot giants and monsters. They begot, and behold, all the earth was corrupted with its blood, and by the hand of giants, which did not suffice for them, and they were seeking to devour many. The monsters attacked it. So in that there was a lot of, it's really fragmented. So we don't have all the gaps. But Dr. Ken Johnson has pieced a lot of these together, and he can actually read these in the original languages. Well, I have an upcoming episode of the Sharpening Report with Ken Johnson, and I asked him specifically about this, and he goes into great detail about how they probably were able to create these animal hybrids after the flood, and even the giants after the flood, in kind of a more naturalistic, scientific way that wouldn't need to include magic and stuff like that. Now, that still might have existed, but he goes into great detail about that. That episode right now is actually available at dailyrenegade.com. If you want to grab a membership. If not, you're going to have to wait for the free version, which is the first half of the interview on YouTube, which airs in a couple weeks. But actually, I don't think I think that question is addressed in the members only section. So if you want that information, and you want biblical scholar Ken Johnson to explain all this to you, the best place to do that right now is go to dailyrenegade.com, get a membership, and you can watch that. You can watch that there. Also, while you're there, participate in the community. But what it goes to show is how close we are to the end. Because think about how when these sins first started happening. I mean, there was a worldwide flood that got rid of all that, and we know this time around. It's going to be just as intense, but in a different way. It's going to be actual judgment. Jesus actually returning to take care of all of these issues. And so, in one sense, if this stuff is ever put to a vote, then we know how we have to vote. But even still, there's probably not a whole lot we can do about it, because I think this stuff, we now know for a fact that this stuff is happening. It's absolutely happening. To what extent, we don't know, but we're right on the precipice there of, if any of this stuff gets released, which a lot of it might have, a lot of it probably did, then the world is corrupted again, just like in the days of Noah. And you know what Jesus said about that. So doesn't that sound familiar? But, for the Christian, it's kind of an exciting time, because it tells us that while these horrible sins are happening, we're that much closer. We're that much closer to everything being restored. Now, this has actually happened with human beings as well. There are hybrids. There are human being hybrids, and it's in mainstream news. It is a fact that there are genetically modified people walking amongst us. So it's not just animals, it's people too. I want to talk about that, but beforehand, I recorded a quick update right before I left for Oklahoma City that gives a lot of information on just what's going on right now. So I'm going to play that, and so watch that. And right after that, we're going to talk about these people that are these genetically modified people, these hybrids that are walking among us. So check this out. So just a couple quick announcements. First off, dailyrenegade.com is the best place to go for these kinds of videos. Go ahead and get a subscription. It's only $10 a month or $100 a year, and it's linked in the description below. If you can do the $100 a year, that's the best one to do, because technically you get 2 months for free. You're only paying $100 a year instead of $120 a year. Monthly, it's only $10. But again, if you do that for 12 months, that's 120. So dailyrenegade.com, get the yearly if you can. That's the best place to get all of this information first before anyone else. We have some amazing new episodes of the Sharpening Report coming up that you don't want to miss. If you wait to watch them on YouTube, you're going to be waiting a few weeks, and you're only getting half of the video. And again, the reason that we've had to do that is because of censorship issues. YouTube has deleted our channels, deleted our videos, so we had to create Daily Renegade to protect ourselves from that. And also what's great about Daily Renegade is there's a community tab, which works a lot like Facebook, and the video tab works a lot like YouTube. There's just no censorship. You're not going to have to worry about any of that. But some of the... so tonight, we have... true accounts of doppelgangers and bilocation. Are they demonic? Why do these things impersonate us? That's airing tonight at 7 p.m. Central. And if you're watching this, it's March 15th at the time of this recording, Friday. Oh, also, I've moved all Sharpening Report episodes to premiere Friday on YouTube. The following week, next week, we have Prophetic Beast Empires of the End Times with author Gary Wayne. And again, all of these are available right now in full at dailyrenegade.com. The next week after that, this would be March 29th, we have Roswell Revisited, New Evidence and Prophecy, and that is with special guest L.A. Marzulli. He actually found some metal debris at a location that not everybody knows about. And he talks about that. So new metal has been found and tested. Can't wait for you guys to see what LA has to say. And then after that, the following week, April 5th, we have Dr. Ken Johnson. Does Enoch and the Dead Sea Scrolls reveal when the rapture is? So we talk about the Dead Sea Scrolls, the Book of Enoch, and the rapture, and the tribulation, all the stuff that you would want to know, especially in terms of like this upcoming eclipse and things like that. Lots of people are really interested in those topics. So if you don't want to wait, head on over to dailyrenegade.com right now and get a membership, and you can view all of these immediately. Otherwise, you're going to have to wait till 7 o'clock on Fridays, and even then, again, it's only It's only the first half of the video. I also want to tell you, check out the description below, because there is a prophecy conference available on demand right now, and I have a special promo code for you. This is from our friends at Prophecy Watchers. There's 30-something odd prophecy experts that are speaking, and you can have access to all of this right now. The link is kind of long, so it's in the description below. Or you can just go to prophecywatchers.com, and I'm sure it's linked there. But you want to use the promo code Peck Orlando 24, PECKORLANDO 24, and I have that information in the description below for you to check out. And then you'll have full access to all the videos and speakers, and it's available now. And if you want more information on the conference itself, the speakers and the topics, go ahead and visit OrlandoProphecySummit.com. And you can have access to all of that. Also, I want to mention, and I'll run this commercial at the end of this video, but we recently put up a video with financial expert Terry Saka about some pretty disturbing things that are coming in the very, very, very near future. So you want to check out that video. But if you want to protect your assets right now, you can finally be free from the satanic beast financial banking system that we're all having to be involved in. You don't actually have to be involved in it. I mean, it's corrupted fiat currency. And I mean, the economy is tanking. You can protect your assets right now with Christians just like you and me. I don't promote a whole lot of businesses on this channel, but I do promote Cornerstone because they're phenomenal. And I've had Terry Saka on. He runs Cornerstone. He's not a huckster. He's not some. And this is also why I don't promote a whole lot of stuff on this channel, is because I want to be really, really careful. I absolutely trust CornerstoneAssetMetals.com. Protect your investments. Protect your retirement. I mean, even if it's just a good idea to just start buying some silver and just having it. Just storing it. They'll store it for you, or if you want, you can have it shipped to your house. You can bury it in your backyard, put it under your bed, whatever you want to do. But real silver will hold value over time, whereas our currency, our dollars, they don't. That's why, like Big Macs are like $10, just for one burger now. If you had that money in silver, it retains its value, and so that's what you want. CornerstoneAssetMetals.com. I'll run the commercial at the end of this. There's also a link in the description below. Also, in terms of the Ken Johnson thing, he and I have available a Dead Sea Scroll calendar, a print version that you can hang on your wall, and it shows the calendar of the Dead Sea Scrolls, which is what Enoch used. It's what the Essenes used. It's actually the calendar that's used all throughout the Bible. So every time that you see these day counts, 12, 60 days, or when you see something like, well, on the third day, so-and-so did this. Well, that's not in there by random. That means that there's a specific date, and you can use this calendar to look and see what that date was, and if there was a feast day on that day. You can even use it for right now, for the eclipse, for all of that stuff. And actually, it falls, according to the Essenes, it falls on one of the days of unleavened bread, which is really interesting. So I have a link if you want to pick up one of those. They make great gifts, too. It's a really good conversation piece to have in your house, and it's a good study tool. So for the Dead Sea Scroll calendar, it's in the description below. It's createphotoshopcalendars.com/shop/ancient Dead Sea Scroll calendar. Long URL. Go to the description. Lastly, second to last, so most of you know that my son Nathan has overcome cancer, but the chemo absolutely ravaged his body, and we're still working to heal that, but we're doing it the all-natural way, which is the best way to do it. The unfortunate thing is to get things that actually help and aren't just filled with like a lot of filler stuff. It's really expensive. So we're not just doing supplements from Walmart or anything. I mean, a lot of that stuff has a bunch of garbage in it that you don't want. To get the real stuff, it's expensive, and insurance absolutely will not cover this stuff. So we're having to pay out of pocket just to keep him healthy. So if you want to help with that, we do have a donation place set up. And it's just paypal.me/Josh Peck disclosure. Really, really easy. And then the last thing, also connecting with donating, I'm moving in just a couple of days. Actually, Monday I'll be taking a flight out to Oklahoma,
and I'm moving there to. I accepted a job at Prophecy Watchers, and I'm going to be doing like creative type projects like videos and stuff like that for them. And so me and my family are moving out there. Well, I have the way that it worked out, and it's kind of a long story. I tell it in a different video, but just the way that it worked out, I had to leave my current job earlier than I expected. It had to do with a rental house we thought we were going to get, but the rental company was being absolutely terrible, and we had to go with a backup option. We did find a house, but that house was undergoing renovations that they're finishing up now. Basically, there's a gap of time where I'm out of work. I don't have an income except for what I do here on Daily Renegade. So I'm asking if you guys want to help get us through just this time till we move. And of course, with moving, there's all sorts of costs. And but if you feel led to help us out, man, we'd really appreciate it. And if you can't afford to, we're not trying to. You could pray for us. That would be the best thing. Either way, keep us in prayer. So I'll be flying out there Monday to get everything set up with the house, and then Christine, my wife Christina, and the kids will be coming out that Wednesday or Thursday, and we'll be moved in. And presumably, I suppose I would start work that following Monday. I don't really know exactly, but even then, usually you when you start a new job, you got to wait a week or two before you start getting paid. So we have a considerable amount of time. I have already left my other job, so that was the 8th, March 8th. So we've got 3 weeks, maybe a month. But part of it too is we need to sell this house. So for a little while, until this house sells, we're going to be paying rent on a house and a mortgage on another house. And we're a single income family. We have 5 kids. My wife stays home with the kids, which she's great at. And we like having it the way that it is because we homeschool and stuff. So, we're a very traditional family in those regards. But we just have the one income. So if you want to help, again, that donation thing is paypal.me/Josh Peck disclosure. We would greatly appreciate it. Okay.
All right, welcome back. Okay, so there was a story, and this isn't even new. This is how scary this is, because it means that this is likely happening elsewhere in the world. There's a lot of places in the world that don't have a lot of regulations on stuff like this. But this is actually from 3 years ago. No, actually 4 years ago, from 5 years ago. My math is awful. This is from 5 years ago. Man, time is flying by, but this is from December of 2019. This comes from Science. Chinese scientists who produced genetically altered babies sentenced to 3 years in jail, meaning he's likely out by now. His name is He Zhangkuai, and he had 2 collaborators, and they were found guilty of illegal medical practices. So he was the Chinese researcher who announced that he had helped produce genetically edited babies, and he was found guilty of that. And that was and there were also two collaborators. They forged ethical review documents. They misled doctors into unknowingly implanting gene-edited embryos into 2 women. One mother gave birth to twin girls in November of 2018, and it has not been made clear when the 3rd baby was born. So all 3 pled guilty. Here's a quote from bioethicist William Hulbert at Stanford. He said, quote, "Sad story, everyone lost in this. But the one gain is that the world is awakened to the seriousness of our advancing genetic technologies. I feel sorry for the family. I warned him things could end this way, but it was just too late." End quote. So in November 2018, he announced that he had modified a key gene in a number of human embryos in a way thought to confer resistance to HIV. Now, it's just like I said before, every time that these experiments happen, there's always some altruistic cause. It's always rose-colored glasses. Well, this is going to cure diseases. If you're not for this, you must not care about this, which isn't true. And they don't give any thought to the possible long-time effects. So this tells us that there are genetically modified people out there right now. Now, what happens when these people get out into the population and reproduce and reproduce and reproduce? Well, given enough time, just like in the days of Noah, everybody could eventually become corrupted. There was an article around the same time from the New York Times, funnily enough, but so the headline is "Genetically Modified People Are Walking Among Us," but then under that, listen to this, it says, "And so far, they're just fine. America needs a sober debate about the pros and cons of CRISPR instead of a paranoid ban on the technology." A paranoid ban. So we're paranoid if we want to keep things at the way that God created them. If we don't want hybrids messing up the humanity's genetic pool, and then God coming in and judging all of it. But so in commenting on that previous story, it says, it felt as if humanity had crossed an important line. In China, a scientist named He Jiankui announced on Monday that twins had been born in November with a gene that he had edited when they were embryos. But in some ways, this news is not new at all. A few genetically modified people already walk among us. In the mid-1990s, fertility doctors in New Jersey got an idea for how to help women have children. They suspected that some women struggled to become pregnant because of defective materials in their eggs. To rejuvenate them, the doctors drew off some of the jelly-like filling in eggs donated by healthy women and injected it into eggs of their patients before performing in vitro fertilization. The researchers did not ask the FDA for permission to try out the procedure. Only after their patients started having healthy children did they share the news that it seemed to work. Once word got around, would-be parents streamed into clinics to try the procedure themselves. And this is usually how this is framed. Yeah, well, they seem healthy. They're fine. Well, the Nephilim, I'm sure, seemed healthy too. Just because they're healthy doesn't mean that this is a right and good thing to do. So I think we're going to be seeing a lot more of this in the very near future. We're already seeing a lot of it, but it's here. It's here, everybody. Nephilim technology is officially here. We have officially crossed over into what could be considered the days of Noah, in terms of these types of things that occurred. So, yeah, with all that, I'd love to know what you think. Leave me a comment in the comment section below, and please, if you're viewing on YouTube or Rumble, please subscribe. That helps out a lot, and click the bell to turn on all notifications if you're viewing on YouTube. But just with all this stuff, while it's it's kind of dark and it's a little horrifying at times. It seems like scientists now are just basically a bunch of Dr. Frankensteins at this point. We know Jesus tells us that these things are to happen, so we know that they're going to happen, and we can rejoice that it's a sign of the times that we're living in. We might not know the day or the hour, but we should know the season, I think. So that for us Christians, that's good news. For the rest of the world, well, they need prayer, they need the gospel, meaning we need to get busy. So with all of that, thank you all so much for joining me on this update. And yeah, look forward to that Ken Johnson interview. You can get it right now. We also have one with Gary Wayne that you can get right now, which is also about Nephilim hybrids and things like that. And we got a couple more really exciting videos. There's one with L.A. Marzulli that will be airing soon about Roswell. And so, yeah, check all that out. Lots of good stuff over at dailyrenegade.com that you can't get anywhere else. All right. Thank you so much. Until next time, take care and God bless.
Concerning the economically unstable times that we live in, it is a great idea to convert some of your savings into real money. Now, there is a big difference between real money and what we call money, which is actually just currency. So our dollar is currency, which fluctuates. Real money, on the other hand, like silver, for example, is a store of value over time. The best way to think of it is like this. If you had saved $1,000 in cash back in the late 60s, the late 1960s, that $1,000 would still be $1,000 technically, but it would buy you significantly less today due to inflation. Now, if you had saved that same $1,000 in silver back in the 1960s, today it would be worth around $28,000. So one of the best ways to protect your purchasing power is in real money, more specifically, silver. You can buy and have the metal shipped discreetly to your door, and what most people don't know is that you can actually convert your IRA or even a 401k into physical silver rather than having all of your life savings tied up in the paper fiat system, which is subject to hyperinflation. Go to dailyrenegade.com and click on the Cornerstone Assets Metals banner. This is the only company that I personally trust with this kind of thing. Click on that and sign up to get your free silver report today. One of the financial experts will speak with you to find out the best way to protect your savings going forward in these uncertain times.